Hello everyone. So today, as I mentioned earlier in my previous video, we're just going to focus on this one single canvas. And what we're going to do is essentially add just straight acrylic paint to these all of these colors. This again is kind of the more abstract. This is in the healing series. This represents the darkness and the pain and kind of just that very initial um, that initial feeling of illness. And so, and at least that's in my world, that's how this is represented. And so I've already got some colors and kind of mixed up. I went so I just have a plain black and then kind of it's almost like a slate gray. I didn't do anything with the lighter gray, but when I was looking at this a second time, I actually think that this is too bright. This pink is too bright for the amount of pain that we want to represent. And so what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to change all of this red into black and then kind of use that darker red in these parts and then move that kind of mauve color and maybe this purple color. And so it's just start moving some of these colors around. Again, going with the no water, just I'm going to start with plain black. So this is actually going to use up my my paint really quickly. In previous paintings, I've talked about how I like to be a little conservative with my paint use. This is going to definitely use up my paint supplies because I'm trying to get this as thick as possible to cover up the watercolor that's on here and kind of those watermarks. I'm really trying to get this to, get on nice and thick and cover the canvas. And this is going to be, if it's not the final product, it's going to be very close to that the final painting. And so um, I just had about a pea size of black paint on my palette, and that is already gone. So this is going to use quite a bit of paint, and that's okay because it's the final product, or very close to the final product. And so just getting some of those colors on canvas, and again, I'm kind of, dipping into some of this stuff, and we're losing a few of the details, but it's okay. When I get those lighter colors on, they don't blend as well without the water, but if I decide to make some of this a little bit lighter, it's a lot easier to just go over the already dry black paint with just plain acrylic. And in this process, you can see there's a few places that there wasn't any paint at all, and so this is getting all of that covered up. Okay, so that's all of the black on the bottom. Now I'm going to go up here and I'm actually going to add black because it was not, for the purposes of this particular painting, it was representing a very dark, painful time in life. And so we want to make sure that that is shown. And I'm again just using full body acrylic paint, and I'm using that kind of, I call it a soft brush stroke, but I feel like when I'm applying pure black paint and I'm kind of mashing on it, it doesn't feel like a soft brush stroke to me. There's quite a bit of paint on here. I'm trying to like get as much of it off as possible. And you can see here in this little area, I was just trying to clean my brush so I wasn't getting that really thick amount on there. So I definitely want to make sure that I'm getting as much paint covering up all of that red as possible. Um, I'm not saying that it has to be my final version of this painting. I just you know, if we are this close to getting the actual uh, color on canvas, I want to make sure that we're efficient with our time too, while still honoring the spirit of this canvas. This is gonna look really weird when I speed this up for the shorts, the short video, with my finger just kind of holding it in place. Not that you need to know the editing process, but it is just gonna look a little funny. That's okay. So now I've added all of the pure black. I am gonna rinse my brush because I did already mix up some of that gray, and it's this kind of this charcoal gray, and um, I'm I'm willing to bet I don't have enough on my canvas, but I've around my palette, but I have mixed up quite a bit, and so hopefully this will be enough to get these two to play nicely together. This one is going on quite a bit better. I also have just a hint of water on my brush. I would like them to blend, and so I am going to go back after adding this and um, get just a little bit of water in there to get them to blend. But the idea is to get this paint on here as thick as possible. And they are kind of already blending, so that's perfect. And there is a little bit of that lighter in here, the lighter colored paints. I am just kind of sticking with the darker paints because, like I said, it it ended up being too bright for what I was trying to, the feeling that I was trying to convey with this painting. Okay, so now some of these areas you can see that the black and the gray are not blending, so I'm just going to kind of go back in. It is ending up covering up too much of my black, so they're just going to have to, they're going to just roll with this. Now, I'm going to step away from this lighter gray. We'll see if I might leave that in there. We'll see. I need to get this dark red done. And I'm doing this all at once so that my colors are the same, so that my blacks and my reds and my grays are all kind of in the same tones. They're already mixed on my palette. And so I'm trying to do this so that all the colors are kind of in the same tone. Now, to get this dark red, what I did before was just some straight black with red, and I have no idea how dark or how um, I almost feel like it's not quite dark enough, but I'm gonna add quite a bit of black. Let's see if I can get that nice and dark red. So this color was not mixed, but just kind of waiting till I got those colors. So this is a very, very dark red, again, to try to get, and I almost feel like that's a little bit too dark, which is fine. I'm going to keep adding it, but I'm going to keep it as close to the black as possible. And you can see some of this, this lighter red, and even some of the grays are kind of coming out, and that's perfect. Because this, you know, the idea is that the pain, the the darkness are very like all consuming, and for people that are going through these things. And actually, as this is kind of going on, the blacks and they're not blending, the black is dry by now, which is part of the reason I was going faster with the grays. I am going to kind of put this red into the black a little since the black is already dry, it's not going to blend too much, but it'll just add a little bit of depth. And so I'm just going to kind of add a little bit of red to that existing black, and it just kind of adds a little bit more depth to that already existing color. Now I have a little bit of red that's not quite as dark, so start adding some of that as we get further away from this very dark part. Um, and I'm not even actually, usually when you do a painting, you kind of step back and you see what it's doing. And I'm in these types of paintings, in an intuitive painting, you almost don't want to step back. You want to just stay as immersed as possible in the work and let the painting kind of fix itself and manage itself. And I ended up going quite a bit darker with this red, and I actually really like it. I really like that it's kind of representing the dark, painful times that people go through, however they experience that. Get a little bit of this lighter red. Ooh, way too bright. Well, guess it's staying on there. Even though it's way too bright for what I was hoping for, it's gonna get blended in. It's just gonna stay like that. Okay, so now, still staying in this red zone, we had some of this purple on here, and I do kind of like that, that that bluish purplish color. I think what I used to mix that was maybe an ultramarine blue, or I'm actually not even sure. Maybe the phthalocyanine blue. I'm not really sure how I got that color. I can't remember. If you're watching these videos in series, you're gonna know better than I am. But what I want to do is I'm actually going to just isolate just the blue and the black and kind of get those two going. And then I'm going to add just a little bit of white to isolate that blue. And again, just trying to get as close to this purple color as possible. Um, I kind of like the red a little bit better than I'm not really sure. Maybe more of the pink. Pink red. This is turning into a blobby gray. That's not at all what I want. So let's just stick with red. That's working. Okay. So now I'm going to add the white to that very dark red. And there is a little bit of blue in here just because I mixed them together. And maybe getting a little bit of gray in here, just getting it nice and dark, but it's still very much the red. And it's kind of it's a gross color, and I kind of like it. Uh, Maybe not quite as light as it needs to be to contrast with this existing color. And it's kind of in that purple range. Um, it's close enough. I'm going with it. I think I'm good. My painting is very wet on the edges, and so hopefully my fingers don't I'm getting this off of here so that I can kind of mix these colors wherever they cross, that red and that kind of purplish color. We'll get some black in there again, but I actually really like this particular this, whatever color this is that it ended up turning into. Um, but I also like the idea of going back in and getting some reds and blacks in with it. And I'm actually going to go over the purple. This purple is, this will go good. They're close enough to what was on here already. And that is it for the purple. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna go get this kind of into that black and the red a little bit. Just kind of fanning that so that it kind of blends, but doesn't really take away from the black. And doing a little bit better job of blending these. I don't want to take away from it, but we want to make sure that it looks like it's part of the painting. I feel like my head's gonna get in here pretty soon. Just trying to, oh man, that's very wet. Just trying to get some of those colors to a little bit blend. Just trying to get my brush as dry as possible. You know, those colors to just kind of overlap. Oh, so there's not that solid line. The paint is very thick and very wet, and that's okay. I'm seeing a few places where the white canvas is actually peeking out, and so I'm getting kind of going over into the red a little bit more to cover those spots up. Now, right in here, I happen to notice that the gray is still wet, so I'm going to very intentionally kind of mix those two since they're very wet, and that kind of gives me a nice mix between the gray and that purple color. And again, just kind of dabbing this into the already existing black and gray to make it kind of blend, but not overpower. That's good. So now this looks much more dreary, depressing. I don't want to use that word, but like, you know, very dark, dark time, right? That is the mood of this painting, and we wanted to make sure that we kind of honored that. And so now I'm going to go back into this whiter area, and kind of as when I started, you know, working on this, I started to notice, like, to me that's kind of almost represents like a hopeful, like it might be a dark time, but there's always hope, no matter how dark times can get. And so just kind of adding, I actually took this kind of purplish color with quite a bit of white, and then there's black and gray in there, and a little bit of red. It's just kind of a mix of colors, and it's the same. It's the same. And so just getting that color on here, and then we'll mix that a little bit more as I keep working on these, adding these colors. Okay, so again, my poor towel is just soaking wet. So again, just kind of getting this color spread out a little, and I actually don't want this color spreading too much because of the the overall theme is that more that darker, those darker vibes, and so just kind of very, very lightly touching up on this to get those edges to be, essentially I don't want sharp edges. That's quite literally the only reason I'm doing this is to get rid of any sharp edges. But I am going to go back in and add some more dark to this because it is a little bit too bright for what we're hoping for. So there's a few places where there is just pure black, and I'm not even rinsing my brush at this point. I'm just, essentially adding in some more black to those places and letting it mix on canvas to get those places kind of darkened. This almost creates like a shadow too. Like, I don't know what it's creating a shadow of, but yeah, shadow of something. And I'm kind of sticking to so like maybe there's a light source off to the right, so I am kind of sticking to the left side of this, just thinning out that particular line of bright colors. And I don't know that the black will go here very well, but I can darken it a little. And it's hard to see this, it's so dark. I kind of like this as an ending point. Yeah, just and I actually kind of like that these are they almost look like hills. So I am gonna kind of go back in here and add a little bit more white. So as I'm, doing this, I'm, kind of seeing shapes that maybe would create some kind of a shape. And that makes it look just a little bit more, I don't want to say recognizable because it's still very abstract, but it's kind of a different feel to it. I like that so much better. It definitely looks hellish, and that's kind of what I was going for. Um, I'm out of anything that can be added to this. Uh, I do think that this darker red could go into uh, spread out a little bit more, but I don't really have a whole lot of darker red, so I'm basically going with uh, the blacks I've just got a hint of black in here, but it has quite a bit of, let's see, I just added water. Yeah, so that water is gonna mess that up, but in the white. So I'm gonna just make a little bit more of that dark red to get into kind of those crevices, just to see. I like that hellish look, kind of limiting the amount of the whiter, brighter colors in there. There's just so much darn gray on my brush. See if that's, yeah, it's much better. A little bit of gray, not too bad. And this side has a little bit more red to it, so I'm gonna kind of honor that red. I definitely like that vibe to it. There's these bright little chunks of red kind of snaking through here. I'm trying to like look at the camera and look at the painting at the same time, and it's kind of a mind messes with the mind a little. Really didn't care for that little blurb. That's so much better. And then just kind of adding a little bit more of this darker color in here to the idea is as dark as possible with this to really emphasize the dark place that people sometimes go. Oh shucks. That no, that's so much better. I like this quite a bit. I'm going to call it and say that that is a very good representation of the place that I was in the dark days of illness when I first found out. And there doesn't appear to be any places on the canvas. I just see one where there's a little bit of white popping out. I'm just kind of making sure that all of the canvas is actually covered. That's the only thing that we want to make sure is that there's thick paint on here. And I believe we're good. We're good.